We think we've evolved past history, but what if we're just repeating it? This time in pixels instead of coins. Rome debased its silver. We're digitizing our dollars. In this video, I'll show you the pattern that broke Rome's money, and why the same pattern is showing up again in digital form. And the result may be the same collapse, only faster. History doesn't repeat word for word. It rhymes in patterns of power, trust, and money. And right now we're living through a revolution so massive that future historians will talk about it the same way we talk about Rome's collapse. Except this time it's not legions marching or cities burning, it's data. Lines of code replacing coins of gold. This is the digital money revolution. Rome's fall in real time. Every monetary empire follows the same three moves. First, it expands beyond what taxes can cover. Then it dilutes its money to close the gap. And finally, confidence cracks and the system fractures. Rome did it in silver. We're doing it in code. For thousands of years, money wasn't just paper or code. It was trust you could touch. Gold, silver, salt, grain, real tangible things that held value because they were scarce. Rome understood this. Its economy was built on the denarius, a silver coin that carried not just value but confidence. When a Roman soldier held that coin, he trusted it the way we trust our bank balance today. It was a promise backed by the empire's power, its discipline, its stability. But empires always grow beyond what they can sustain. Armies expand, borders stretch, costs explode. And when taxes can't keep up, rulers always find the same shortcut. They debase the money. Rome began melting down its coins, adding cheaper metals, pretending nothing had changed. At first, no one noticed. And everyone did. And when they did, trust cracked. Prices soared. Soldiers demanded higher pay. And trade slowed. The world's most powerful economy had built its empire on metal. And now that metal was losing its soul. Money lost meaning, and Rome began to rot from within. Not the only cause, but a silent accelerant. Centuries later, humanity swapped silver for paper, gold-backed notes that claimed to represent real metal in vaults, but the game never changed. Every empire, from Spain's silver fleets to Britain's pound, eventually learned the same dangerous trick: print more promises than you can keep. In 1971, the United States made it official. President Nixon ended the dollar's convertibility to gold. The night real money died and faith-based money took over. After that, money wasn't tied to a scarce anchor anymore. It was tied only to policy. For the first time in history, the entire global economy ran not on substance, but on trust alone. Governments could print, borrow, and spend without limit. Central banks became the new emperors, minting wealth, not in metal, but in keystrokes. And for decades, it worked, or at least it looked like it did. But the illusion of endless prosperity always cracks. It did in Rome. It did in Weimar. And it's cracking now, just not in coins or paper, but in code. Money has always evolved alongside power. And when Europe shifted from monarchs to parliaments, gold coins gave way to government-backed notes. When industry rose, banks became the engines of nations. And now, as data becomes the new frontier, money itself is becoming digital, detached from both paper and physical reality. Today we've entered a new age, the digital empire. Money no longer jingles in pockets or folds in wallets. It flickers on screens, existing as data, intangible, invisible, and instant. Every payment, every trade, every debt is now part of a vast digital web. It feels modern, efficient, safe, but beneath the glow of our screens, the same old danger is back. Dependency on trust. We trust banks to store it. We trust governments to value it. We trust algorithms to protect it. And most of us never stop to ask, what happens when that trust fails? Rome had silver. We have code. Both were treated as unbreakable. Both are only as strong as belief allows. When the pandemic hit in 2020, the world faced a crisis that tested every system, political, medical, and financial. Factories closed, borders froze, entire economies paused overnight. And what did our leaders do? They created money, trillions of it, with a few clicks. Rome diluted its silver over centuries. We expanded our money supply at a speed no empire has ever tried. Governments called it stimulus. Central banks called it support. But the truth was simpler. We were printing belief, not wealth. Inflation followed, first denied, then redefined, and finally accepted. But inflation is not just about higher prices. It is about shrinking value, the slow theft of purchasing power that punishes the saver and rewards the debtor. It's the tax no one votes for, and the one that never goes away. For ordinary citizens, the result was clear. Groceries cost more, housing slipped further out of reach, and savings bought less each year. And while politicians pointed fingers, the silent reality was this: every empire in history has done the same thing. When cornered by debt, they don't default on paper, they default in value. Like emperors of old, modern leaders believe they can outsmart history. When economies stall, they cut rates. When markets shake, they print. When people panic, they promise. But every promise creates dependency. Every bailout breeds fragility. Every rescue undermines the discipline that once gave money meaning. And in the digital age, that process accelerates. A single decision by a central banker can move trillions. A single glitch can erase billions. The stability of nations now depends not on gold reserves, but on server uptime. Rome debased its silver with fire and hammers. We debase ours with code. The next revolution is already here. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDC. They're being sold as innovation, modernization, convenience. But beneath the marketing lies something deeper. Control. A CBDC isn't like your bank account. It's not just digital cash, it's programmable money. Every transaction can be traced, limited, reversed, or denied. Imagine a system where stimulus expires after 30 days, where your spending can be restricted by category, where your access to money depends on your social score, your carbon footprint, or your compliance with policy. That's not a distant dystopia. Versions of this are already being tested in places like China and Europe, and could expand elsewhere. Rome used legions to enforce its will. Tomorrow's governments will use software. The more digital money becomes, the less free it is, because once money becomes code, freedom becomes permission. Empires never collapse all at once. They decay slowly, invisibly, bureaucratically. Their people adapt to each new restriction, each new temporary measure, until control becomes culture. Rome's citizens didn't realize they were living through collapse. Their markets still opened. Their cities still functioned. Their coins still circulated, until one day they didn't. That's how trust dies. Not with chaos, but with routine. When systems rot beneath the surface while the surface still smiles, our world feels stable. Our money feels secure. But every number on a screen, every balance in an app, every asset backed by a promise, all depend on one fragile thing: faith. And history has never been kind to faith unanchored by reality. We've seen this pattern before. First comes innovation, a breakthrough that changes everything. Then comes expansion, the golden age of growth. Then comes corruption. Shortcuts, printing, illusion, and finally collapse. Not because of external attack, but internal excess. Rome fell not when barbarians stormed its gates, but when its money lost its meaning. Britain's empire didn't crumble from invasion, but from debt. And today, the same pattern echoes in every spreadsheet, every stimulus, every click of print. The names change, the rhythm doesn't. Every empire thinks it's different. Every empire learns it's not. Technology has made our system faster, but not wiser. We can now transfer value across the world in seconds. Yet the value itself keeps eroding. We call it progress when it is really acceleration. Racing forward on the same broken road that history has paved before us. But here's the paradox. Collapse isn't just destruction. It's transformation. When Rome fell, it didn't vanish overnight. It evolved. Its laws, its language, its architecture outlived the empire itself. And maybe that's where we are now. Not at the end of money, but at the beginning of something new. A reset. A return to meaning. A reckoning with the idea that value cannot be infinite and trust cannot be printed. The question isn't whether our digital empire will fall, it's what rises after it. We like to think we're the masters of innovation, but history is the true innovator. It finds new tools, new currencies, new systems, and it tests them all the same way. Rome's silver failed the test of trust. Paper failed the test of discipline. Digital money will face the test of control. The question is whether we'll learn before it's too late. Because if history teaches one truth, it's this: every illusion of stability is temporary. Every system built on trust alone eventually demands a reckoning. When that moment comes, when pixels lose their power and belief turns to doubt, those who hold real value, real assets, and real understanding will endure. And those who believe the illusion will watch it dissolve, just as Rome's citizens once did, holding coins that no longer meant anything. We're not spectators of history. We're living it, typing, trading, and transacting inside it every day. The next collapse won't come with fire. It'll come with a login screen that suddenly says, access denied. That's how empires end now. Quietly, digitally, globally. But we don't have to be victims of it. History's lessons are there for anyone willing to see. It's not about fear. It's about awareness. It's about remembering that money is not magic. It's trust. And trust, once broken, is the hardest thing to rebuild. If you want more breakdowns like this, history and money in real time, subscribe and stay here. The answers aren't hidden in the future. They're written in the past.